So we've got Francis Miles, who's the senior product marketing manager at Outtake, and we've got Jillian Criscolo, who's deployment engineer at Outtake. Delighted to have them both here. I'm really looking forward to the presentation and the demo. But let's quickly take a look here just before we get into that and see how the voting is going. So confidence levels looks like somewhat confident and not very confident are kind of the leaders, but we've got people in sort of every camp. Okay, so really interesting results. Thanks everybody for your votes there. All right, well with that, let me bring on Francis to get us started. Oh wait, before I do that, let me stop sharing the. Sorry, stop sharing the poll. All right, let me bring on Francis to get us started.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scott. I am back. I think I did one of these 2 weeks ago on brand protection, but we're back today with a covering executive threats and executive protection. So I'm psyched to dive into things. So a little on the agenda today. First, we'll go through these 5 sections. The internet is now agentic. For this, we'll be talking about why the threat landscape just broke. Then we'll be going through why legacy point products fall short, why your current stack can't keep up, the digital trust platform, what a modern day Playbook looks like, and we'll kind of go through our Outtake platform. And then we'll do an executive protection deep dive and demo, and that'll be done with Jillian, who is my counterpart here. And I'll go pretty quickly because I know everyone wants to see the demo as soon as possible, but we'll dive in. So by the end, you'll know how attackers are using AI and what the new defense looks like. So let's start with what broke. And this is kind of the quote that's plastered on the walls at Outtake. We've all read it a million times, but I'll read it again for everyone in the audience here. And that is AI made it easy to fake everything, so it's hard to trust anything. This is the line that explains everything we're going to be talking about today. And this kind of theory here is that faking used to be really expensive. It took skill, time, and infrastructure. A convincing deepfake, a cloned voice, a fake executive profile. These required real resources and technical skill. And AI has killed all three constraints simultaneously. And for executives specifically, this is the worst possible development. Your CEO's voice is on earnings calls, their face is on CNBC, their opinions are on LinkedIn. This is all the training that an attacker needs. They can kind of pull together all these pieces, all this open information across the web and create this perfect dossier. So when faking is free, the question isn't whether someone will target your leadership. It's how fast you find it and how fast you can act. And that's what we're here to solve. This is another slide that's kind of been, again, plastered across Outtake, and I think it's really interesting. It's really one of the big reasons I joined here at Outtake. And this K-shaped trend shows that humans are now the minority on the internet, which is crazy to think about. And it's kind of diverging in this path here. And some scary stats I want to cover now are bad bots alone are now 37% of all traffic. Now, not all bots are malicious, but a third of them are, which is insane. Phishing is up 703% in the last year. AI made personalization very free and really, really easy. Overall bot activity is up 300% year over year. We all live on this internet, your executives, your customers, your employees. There's no way to opt out of it. So we're all kind of like in this space now where bots are now the majority. So it's very interesting. So let's look at how an attack actually works. So there's 3 stages to an attack. And I covered this last, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago now in the brand, but it's very, very similar to how it would work with an executive. I don't recommend anyone does this, but if you're going to create an attack, here's the 3 quick steps. Number 1 would be research. You're going to weaponize public data, PII leaks, doxxing, expose secrets, anything you can find out about your target that's already on the open web. Next, you're going to impersonate. Use this data to build a perfect spoof. Their CEO's voice, their schedule, their support team, everything around them. Number 3 is infiltrate. Use the impersonation as a lure into customer trust, employee inboxes, and agent pipelines. With AI, this whole loop runs in hours, sometimes minutes. This used to take weeks to kind of set up this workflow, and now it's done in minutes every day around us. Attackers now run this loop at an industrial scale against thousands of brands in parallel. I think we have a few examples, on the next slide. So let's see. We have CEO voice cloning, AI-generated audio of a CEO authorizing a $25 million wire transfer. Insane, as in a financial service industry, over in healthcare. Within hours after the UNH incident, fake executive profiles flooded LinkedIn and X. People creating these fake profiles of executives trying to infiltrate employees and scamming them. In the tech, we have coordinated doxing campaigns, C-suite targeted simultaneously across 15 platforms using home addresses, family members, schools, daily. All this public information out there. These attackers will use this and then infiltrate the executives. let's see. All right, here we go. So I'm not sure if you can see my cursor here, but I'm down at the bottom. For the last 20 or so years, cybersecurity spent its money down here. And this is the internal perimeter. This is like endpoint, network, data, identity, and cloud. Companies like Palo Alto, CrowdStrike, Wiz, Cyera, Zscaler, billions of dollars, fantastic companies, fantastic products. But the point we're looking to make here is that this kind of internal perimeter has been fortified with all these amazing products. But recently, it's this pivot has kind of taken place where the attackers have moved and they don't fight you where you're strong. They move to this external perimeter, which is on the top here. And this is websites and domains, advertisements, social media, emails, LinkedIn, all this public information. Everywhere your executives show up in the public, there's no controls over this visibility. And this is what an attacker will take and use to kind of infiltrate this layer. This is the unsolved half of cybersecurity. We know it exists. It's not that there's been concerns around it, just there hasn't been a platform yet until today. So let's dive in. And this is kind of a look at why we can't rely on legacy tools given this era of agentic internet. So most tools are text only, and this is kind of a big differentiating factor amongst existing tools and Outtake, and we'll cover it later in the platform demo. But these dangerous signals on things like TikTok audio or images and video, these are all invisible to legacy tools, and attackers know this. When we do get an alert, you get a fragment of it with no context, no history, no escalation pattern. You see this alert, but you don't know where it came from and how it's connected. In some instances, some of our competitors have been told you kind of get dropped into this 200-person Slack channel trying to triage these and throw out this noise. Outtake's all agentic. Speed matters. During these instances, we have travel windows, earnings calls, shareholder meetings. By the time a legacy tool surfaces a threat, organizing around one of these events, it's already too late to act and it's already taken place. These compounding problems, that's why stacking products in these endpoint solutions won't really work anymore. Kind of moving on, this is a bird's eye view of the Outtake platform kind of summed into a single slide, but this is one of my favorite slides to cover, and let me just make sure I can see the whole thing in my view. So we kind of want to work down from the top here. What we do is we start at the global signal network. The attacker watches every public surface where you show up, and so do we. We continuously across hundreds of platforms. This is social media, clear web, dark web, app stores, out there on the web, you name it, we're there. So we take all this information and it funnels down at the digital trust reservoir. And so once we see something, we don't forget it. Every signal flows into this huge memory layer that gets sharper every day. Every threat, every relationship, every campaign we've ever dismantled kind of lives in this layer. From there, most platforms will stop at this alert. Maybe it's a domain or a fake Instagram ad. We don't. We take the fake ad as a component of it, and it's just a single node. We connect the dots from that node, the fake ad, the clone domain, the Telegram channel, the fraud ring behind it. On average, that single node has 34 connected nodes. So what we're doing here is kind of taking the idea of one ad or one Instagram channel or one fake website and kind of finding the entire threat network behind it. The metaphor I like to use is, if you just remove that one domain, it's kind of like trimming the top of a weed. Or here at Outtake, we kind of connect all the dots and then rip out the whole root system so it doesn't just come back. Currently today, we're working with some amazing brands. We've been around for 3 years and honored to be partnered with some of the most incredible brands in the world, spanning across every industry. I remember this slide was shown when I first joined, and I couldn't figure out, the dots connected between them. We have Chobani and IBM, we have the government, we have NVIDIA, all these fantastic products. And kind of the way I like to connect them is the pattern here is that the companies that were targeted the most have moved the first and kind of seen this problem and reached out to us, and we've been able to help them solve these issues. Moving on here. So right now throughout our platform, we have 4 services, and I want to walk through those. We have brand protection. That's looking at fake domains, cloned apps, malicious ads. Sorry. We'll go find the campaign behind each one of those and take it down. We have executive protection, of course, what we're covering today. This is doxxing, extortion, PII leaks. We catch the threats before it reaches your leaders. We have product protection. This is unauthorized resale, trial abuse, token fraud. We shut down the operations quickly behind these. And we have location protection. This is venue targeting. Outtake, we can map the threat at each location, whether it's an earnings call or an event or something like that. So we have one platform. Right now we have 4 solutions. Something I want to add is that given this platform, we can elegantly scale. We launched, location protection, maybe it was last week, and I'm really excited to kind of continue this path and build more and more protection solutions down it. When the exec, another awesome thing about this platform is it kind of talks together, and as you add solutions to your network, let's say when the executive protection agent flags a doxing site, the brand protection agent sees the same infrastructure being used on fake domains. So it really elegantly kind of connects the dots between these different solutions. Defense that it kind of compounds here. Every campaign we dismantle makes the next even easier. But let's dive into executive protection. Awesome site to cover off on this. So we see threats in every format here on executive protection. We see text, video, audio, images. If it's on the internet and references your executives, we can catch it. When something surfaces, we hear about it in minutes. Alerts are sent to Slacks and Teams channels with full context, the who, the what, the where. We don't just flag the post, we build a file in the actor, fixation patterns, tone shifts, proximity signals, tracked over time so you know with the noise is something escalating. Now I want to kick it over to Jillian. Let's see, I think that's my last slide. It is. Awesome. So Jillian, take us away with the product demo. And awesome, I will stop sharing my screen.
Awesome. Thank you, Francis. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. My name is Jillian, and we're going to walk through how Outtake handles executive protection. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And as I do that, just want to give it a disclaimer. For today's demo, we're going to be looking through the lens of a very recognizable large global brand, McDonald's. We're looking at public data and giving you an example of what executive protection can look like through the lens of their brand. Okay, cool. Want to confirm everyone can see my screen? Cool. Okay. Awesome. So when we're thinking about how Outtake functions, when Francis just walked through kind of what that platform view looked like, it really starts at the top, and that's through search. And the way our search works is that our agents go out and they're really looking for the context of your specific brand, of your specific individuals through what we call entities. So these entities will allow us to make sure that if we're looking, just kind of this example you see here on the screen is for our CEO, Alex. Alex is a very common name. We want to make sure that we are only searching and pulling in things that are really in context of Alex, the CEO of Outtake. So as we look at this example of this McDonald's profile, you can see we have these entities that can be at the location level, like the McDonald's headquarters. They could be at the individual level. Chris will say K for his last name. They could also be at the brand level as well for McDonald's. So if we click specifically into one entity for Chris, you can see here that instead of just relying on binary keyword search, we instead can start to do a more intelligent semantic search, providing all of this information for our agents. So we can see we're adding in aliases for him. So when there's mentions of McDonald's CEO, we know this is in reference to Chris. We can also have a natural language description, really explaining who he is, and even provide images as well so that we can start to, when there's chatter about him on across different social platforms, think X, for example, maybe there's just some general mention of someone named Chris. We want to also be able to do things like reverse image search and make sure that we're looking at Chris in the context of McDonald's. And just to give you an example of what that looks like. So as our search agents are going out there, they're pulling in all this content. As the data comes into our system, we have this concept of entity detection. One of these entities, what is this data passing our entity detection, meaning when is it in the context of this specific individual? So you can see here, we'll have some examples of things that have passed entity detection. For example, a direct message or direct mention of McDonald's here from this TikTok, McDonald's mentioned again here in this X post. And as we look down, we can see things that have failed entity detection. And I think this is a great example here where this is a mention of someone saying mac and cheese, where is in a regular kind of world of keyword search, maybe Big Mac would be some type of keyword for McDonald's as a brand. And this type of TikTok here would get pulled in. Whereas in this case, we're really starting to look at the full context and seeing, okay, this is actually mentioning mac and cheese, not the Mac that we're specifically looking for. So here you can see really the difference that shows when doing full entity-based search versus just that keyword search. I'll now move on to kind of show what we look at once we do this full search. We're really top of funnel. What is the breadth and depth of content that we can pull in? So as I move here, we're looking at our content wall. And this isn't necessarily a view that an analyst would spend time in. You can see there's about 16,000 pieces of content. So there's a lot of content here that has been pulled in the context of McDonald's. I want to specifically call out this TikTok right here, and also just kind of calling out our search agents will start to do multimodal search. So again, we're looking at things like audio, we're looking at things like video. This, for example, is a TikTok. Also looking at things like overlay text. And as I scroll down, you can see here that we also pull in the sentiment. And I want to call out that the sentiment is really going to be in the context of the specific entity. So whereas this specific post might be parody, it might be overall funny, where this could be generally positive, the fact that our sentiment here is negative is because it is directly making fun of our specific entity, Chris, the CEO of McDonald's. You can see here we also have the caption of the post as well as a description of the transcript. So this can be helpful, especially when things start to become multilingual and we wanted to go ahead and do a translation directly in the product. That'll all be available for you, as well as information kind of why this specific piece of content has passed that entity detection that we just spoke about. Okay, so from here, we've looked at what is that wide net. There's about 16,000 different posts, but how do we start to narrow that down really into specific workflows? And that's where we start to get into how we handle executive protection. So I'll move here into the homepage, and you can see there's quite a few different workflows that exist. Things can range from account takedowns, so where they're impersonating social accounts of your executive, where are people messaging and telling your customers to go into certain WhatsApp channels and pretending to be your executives. This is where we can start to remove those accounts, as well as at the app and the domain level, like Francis mentioned. Today, though, we're going to specifically focus on our executive protection workflow. As I jump into this, you can see here we're looking at this queue of alerts that have come in and is flagged. There's about 44 here, so really calling out that we're narrowing down, kind of moving down the funnel from that over 10,000 pieces of content that we just saw. Now we're only looking at the ones that our agents have determined pose some type of risk. So this example that I have pulled up here on the screen is actually a post from X. We can see the sentiment is negative, and we can see the caption here of what is actually in the tweet, and it is McDonald's CEO needs Luigi for countless reasons. So looking at this post, it's non-traditional, violent kind of words that are used in this, something that keywords wouldn't necessarily catch. But because we're starting to do an agentic evaluation and analysis on this, we can really grab the full meaning of what this is. You can see here we have these key findings produced, and these you can think of as signals that our agents use to determine if there is a risk associated with this type of content. So you can see it's mentioning an employee, so mentioning the CEO of McDonald's. There's calls to violence here. These calls are passive, but still there is a call to violence, discussion of violence as well, and our agents are able to know that this is a slang reference to a killing that happened. So just to show that this does go beyond just if this was saying, I'm going to kill this executive, as these actors start to get smarter and know that keyword-based tools will flag those and they start to get more creative, we want to make sure that we are still looking at this and pulling in when there is a threat. So as I scroll down, you'll see this agent analysis. And just to call out, it is AI agents doing this, not human agents. So they'll go in, these agents will use those signals, and they'll then create a risk that's associated with this specific piece of content. So you can see here, they have flagged it. The reason they have flagged it is because it's using that slang term. It's commonly associated with killing or harming an individual. So this is really where we can start to intelligently triage. And then from here, the agents will only surface things that pose the most pressing risk to the individual that you are protecting. As I go down, I also want to call out the related alerts here, or what we think of as our threat graph. So we can see here, this is the piece of content that we're looking at. And then we can also see who the author is that is attached to this. And this is a really important thing to know, is this can give you a view and insight into, is this individual posting about your executive constantly? Are there 30 different child nodes that are actually associated with this account? Is there some pattern of fixation? Is there escalating sentiment as they keep posting every single day? And this is really where we can start to get a view of how many times are they referencing your CEO, or if there are a lot of mentions of just generic CEOs. This is just something they do every single day, doesn't pose an immediate risk. Whereas here we can start to look at, okay, how many times are they actually mentioning and referencing the CEO of your company? And then the last thing that I want to call out here while we're in this executive protection workflow is also just the analytics piece as well. So I'll move over here into analytics, and this is where you can start to see our mentions math. And this becomes important when we're thinking of executive protection, such as, are these pieces of content, are they referencing locations that are actually very close to our CEO? Are they in proximity to where our CEO is located? Maybe they're talking about a specific location, such as their home address, or maybe somewhere that they're traveling, or maybe a certain meeting or conference that they know your CEO will be at. So this is where we can start to highlight where these specific pieces of content are referencing and really start to pull in kind of that full geographic view of this as well. And with that, we are done with the demo. I think I will pass it over to Francis.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julian. Let's see. I think we had some questions. Looks like we have one, two, oh, three. Okay, awesome. We will start with this one. And I'm terrible at reading things off of paper, so we're going to give it a go here. We already run social and keyword monitoring. Realistically, what does this catch that our current tools don't?
That's a good question, and something kind of just addressed when we were looking at the demo. But I think the big idea is that threats that matter are really built to dodge keywords. They live in audio and video and images, that overlaid text that's in a TikTok, and that really reference a leader without explicitly naming them, especially with geolocation buried deep inside of a post. So kind of where Outtake differs is that we read text, we read video, we read audio and images all at once across social, fringe forums, even web and dark web, across all languages. And really thinking back to that demo when we looked at the TikTok of that parody example, that woman impersonating the McDonald's executive, that was a way that we could see that we were pulling in the transcript and the audio from that, that wouldn't necessarily have surfaced if we were just kind of reading the caption.
Awesome. All right, question number 2. My team is already drowning in alerts, and most are just noise. How do you tell a loud account from one that's actually escalating toward a leader?
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. Well, Outtake agents, they're really going to triage only the most pressing alerts based on signals really from the content that we're seeing. So we kind of talked about this earlier, but we looked at the content wall that had over 16,000 posts, and then the agent determined there was only 44 that were actually threatening to the executive. And that's where the agent will start to look at things like escalating sentiment, those patterns of fixation that I mentioned, and even those calls to violence, whether they're passive or whether they're active. And then from there, we can start to build a dossier on our actors and trace it kind of over time. Where else are they mentioning it on other platforms? And really start to notice when the tone is shifting from commentary to hostility to then a direct threat. Are they starting to increase the number of followers they have? Is there real world proximity? And the whole goal here is so that your team can see a full story, not just an individual piece of content.
Awesome. All right, number 3, final question. When a leader is traveling or we have an earnings event, how fast would we actually know if something is forming near the venue or the route?
Okay, so an outtake, that roughly is going to take 15 minutes from signal to alert. I know the traditional benchmark is kind of 7 to 9 hours, with there being kind of a manual lag there. So the real advantage is that we're able to parse geolocation from content that we're seeing across these social platforms and map it to landmarks, intersections, driving routes across all those different languages. And then we're able to notify your teams when there is a critical alert. And our search agents are going to pick up monitoring for specific events, so they can increase the rate that they're monitoring and then slow down when the event ends. So we're thinking specific meetings that they're traveling to or certain events that we know they'll be at. And really the whole idea is that the alert can reach your team before the motorcade even leaves the hotel, not after it.
Fantastic. That, I think, is it. So I will send it back to you, Scott. Thanks so much.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Francis, and thanks, Jillian. That demo was really cool and really great technology, nice interface. That's good stuff. Well, all right. Letting you guys get on with your busy days. A couple of notes for everybody. One, we do have the last poll of the day open there in the poll tab. That's if you want to go deeper after today, you can select some options there. So I highly recommend that. And before we get to the prize drawing, we do have one quick other favor to ask of you all. So Arena is opening up a short survey that we'd really appreciate if you could fill out. So this is for those of us on the actual tech media side. We just want to know how we're doing and what y'all like and don't like about our session. So we just want to make sure that we're meeting your needs. And the results of this survey are going to affect how we deliver these events for you in the future. So we'll give you all just a minute to fill that out. While you're doing that, I do want to mention one more time about that short data sheet that's available in the docs section. It's on the Outtake executive protection. So a nice takeaway for some of the stuff that you've heard about today. Okay, and the last piece of business before we wrap up is the prize giveaway. And today's winner of a $250 Amazon gift card is Adam Gorlewski from Michigan. So congratulations to Adam. As always, we'll be in touch about claiming your prize after the event. And with that, on behalf of the actual tech media team, I want to thank Outtake for making this event possible. Giant thank you again to Francis Miles and Jillian Crascolo for Just a really interesting chat and demo. And a big thank you to all of you in the audience for joining us today. It was great having you all here for this actual tech media event. We look forward to seeing you again next time. Have a fantastic rest of your day.